And welcome back to my continuation of my how to play Warframe. And today I want to show you status effects. It's kind of complicated in a way, but as soon as you get the hang of it, it's quite easy. And to show you status effects, I have the Amprex, which is a Corpus energy rifle, which only has one status effect, which in this case is electricity, so that I can show you specific status effects with yeah. Okay, so at first I gotta explain the entire bottom section of what it is, or generally what the stats all mean. Accuracy is, well, how accurate your shots are and how close to the point where you aim at, the middle dot, your shots will land. Critical chance, how likely you are to land critical hits. I'll get to crits later. Critical multiplier is how much more damage your crit does compared to your normal hit. Fire rate, how fast the gun fires. Magazine, how much magazine you have. Obvious. Noise, if you will alarm enemies when you shoot the weapon. Reload, how long it takes you to reload. Time in seconds. By the way, fire rate is bullets per second, so that's quite fast. Trigger is how you fire that gun. Is it like a full auto, or is it a beam weapon which is held? Is it a burst, or is it a charge weapon like a bow? And then the damage types. Most weapons, like the legs, have the standard IPS or impact puncture slash system, but the Amprex does not, so I use that to show you the damage types. First damage type is electricity, and to show that I'm just gonna remove all those enemies and spawn a lot of high level units so that they don't die too fast, because when you get into status effects, stuff dies pretty fast. Probably not with this weapon, but hey. And my Sentinel. Sentinel, why are you ruining it to me? Get out of here. If you do stealth missions, always unequip your Sentinel, or at least his weapon. Some weapons can attack even without a weapon with their abilities, but just to be sure. Okay, electricity. The dance status effect, because as soon as you proc that, enemies will start just getting zapped and be crowd controlled for like a little bit. So they will just dance for a while and not do damage to you during that time. And status chance, which I completely skipped intentionally, is the chance on mostly if you shoot one bullet at the enemy, it has a certain percent chance to proc a status effect. Proc is just cause an instance of that status effect, like just make the enemy dance in that case. On some weapons you have status per second, so for example most beam weapons have that, so by firing the beam 1 second you have a certain percent chance of causing that status effect during that 1 second fire. And yeah, that's electricity. Pretty basic, just makes people dance. Then you can combine electricity with cold to get magnetic. Doesn't do anything for Grenier, but does it gives them this aura by the way, if you use magnetic against other players, it would um, drain their energy away, like the energy that you use for using that stuff, oops, by enemies, it will drain really fast. 100 energy per time you proc it. But who even plays Conclave, or however it's called. Let's just kill the enemies, spawn like only 10, so we can also have some corpus units to show that stuff. Okay. Come on, game. So now that I have magnetic on my weapon, just look at how much shields they have. And now look how much shields they have now. Basically what magnetic does, it temporarily lowers their shields by 75%. It doesn't just shrink it down, it just removes 75% of the shields. As long as this effect is on them. If the effect is gone, well then you have them back to their full shields, or to their normal shields. It just makes it easier for you to remove someone's shields if he has like a lot of it. And I'm just gonna put continuous misery on because some status effects length can be increased. So that was magnetic, good for corpus. Not good for anything else because it's weak against like everything else. So what else we can put on Hellfire? For radiation. And for radiation I have to do something which... Okay, let's just do that. Unpause them, spawn 2 or 3 Grenier dudes. I'm invulnerable so they can't kill me. So if I proc radiation on them and just leave them alone, they will be confused, because that's what radiation does. It causes confusion, so enemies will attack each other if they don't see you, or if you're not closer to them than each other. So that's neat sometimes, and that's also something that can be caused by certain Warframe abilities, to just make enemies fight them instead of you. Let's just get rid of you again. Pause them. Okay. That was radiation. It's good against LR armor like the eviscerators that we've seen, or bombards like the rocket dudes, but you won't have to deal with them up until higher level. So they're not really interesting. Just they shoot rockets, those rockets hurt, and they have a lot of armor. So what else can we pair electricity with? We haven't tried toxin, and that's where things get interesting. Because corrosive is like the most useful yet most difficult to understand effect. Because what a corrosive weapon does, for one, it does more damage to Grenier, like this heavy gunner. And also, when you proc corrosion, it will permanently, forever, remove 25% of his current armor. Which means if he has like 10,000 armor, it will straight up remove a quarter of it. Then if you proc it again, it will remove 25% of the 7,500, and so on and so forth. So it will at first remove a big bunch of the enemy's armor, and then remove less and less armor. So if I just hold down, he will soon not have any armor anymore. But you see the damage is really increasing. I'm just doing 156, 157, so it didn't remove too much armor at the end. That's because it's like exponentially decreasing because of it only takes 25% of the current armor. So after like 5 or 6 procs, depending on the level, the armor will already be negligible. And at 10 procs, it'll be like 10 armor or 1 armor or 1 point something armor, so nothing too troubling. So that's why it's very good at against Grenier. And as you see, if you then shoot his head, you even do a considerable amount against a level 100 heavy gunner. Still not that much, but hey, it's a almost unmodded weapon which can kill a heavy gunner at level 100. By the way, if you're wondering where you encounter enemies at level 100, I guess after Mastery rank 5 you can do a specific mission which you can fight really high level enemies. But for the starter things, you don't get to that level at all. And what else can we combine with electricity? Nothing really. But we can just leave electricity aside and see what else we can combine. We can combine, let's try not to get too much damage. I mean, it doesn't matter, they're high level. If you put one mod in, it'll combine with the basic element or stuff that you have on. If you put another element, it'll combine under each other. So cold and fire, cold and heat, will combine to blast, which is a very useful status effect. The only thing bad about it, whoops, I should resummon those. The only bad thing about blast is that it hardly does any damage. It only knocks the enemies on their asses and yeah, just like that. So you can just proc electricity because that's on the weapon, and also proc blast if I can get it to proc properly. Could you please sit down? Okay, you've seen they got knocked down. Sometimes if you have a weapon with different status effects, it doesn't really work. And also, if you have 20 electricity damage and only 1 blast damage, 1 damage point of blast, it'll be more likely to choose electricity. It like adds the two numbers and divides it how much. It's like 2/3 of the time it'll do blast, and 1/3 of the time when it procs something, it'll proc the specific elements. So what else can we combine it with? Let's just keep it cold, and we already had cold with electricity, so next thing we can do is cold with cold doesn't really work. Cold with toxin. And that one is easier to show against Corpus, so let me just spawn some Corpus in. Corpus. And the shockwave that you see is because of Rhino's passive. If he falls from a great height, he will do a shockwave. Nothing too special. So, against Grenier, you don't really see that much except for a symbol at behind the health bar. So, the stairs duration is quite long. So, if you shoot Corpus, where you have shields, you will okay. you will see that they have the viral symbol on. What that means is the enemy's maximum health at this time is cut in half. So for the duration of the viral effect, which is quite long because I have continuous misery on, he only has half of the health. So if you do damage to him during that phase, it will basically mean you're doing double the damage. But the only bad thing is, after the damage effect ends, he's back to his original health, which sometimes means he straight up refills all the damage that you've done to him. You've still done some damage, so that's kept, but yeah, there you see it procced and it removed a little bit of his health. I don't know if that changed or if that's just a visual thing that it doesn't show like it's completely cut in half. I don't know. It splits the enemy's max health in half for the duration of the status effect. Useful against some units, and also the viral status effect is good against Grineer health and Grineer flesh and all that stuff. So what else can we mix it with? We had fire, we had toxin, and we have electricity. Did I miss anything? No, I don't think so. So then we can go to fire. We already had radiation, which makes the enemies fight each other. We already had cold. So now we only need toxin. There we go. Which combines to gas. Gas is a kind of weird element in the damage calculations, are very complicated, in my opinion, too complicated, but the damage that you have, like the 39 points of damage that you see in your stats, is the damage that you're gonna do to your enemies with the gas proc. And also the gas proc makes a cloud of gas, like this little fart cloud that you've seen, around the enemy that it procced on. So it's like a little fart effect. And all the other enemies around it, if the damage wouldn't spread, because that's what the Ampex does, it chains to teammates, it chains between enemies, it will still affect this dude even if it wouldn't have chained to him, because of the gas cloud. And then the gas will go over into a toxin effect, like a poison effect right here. And this poison effect will have only a third of the damage. Okay, it will only take the damage that you have as toxin. So if you have like all the damage into heat and the 90% heat mod on, but only like 10% toxin, the first initial proc will do a lot of damage and the rest will do almost nothing. So it only goes after the toxin damage that you have on there. And yeah, that's basically it. It's just gassing the enemy. What else can you put on? You can put on toxin. We've already matched it with Cryons to get viral. We have matched it with fire to get gas. The only thing you can do with that is match it with electricity to get corrosion. So that's really good. That's why I like this weapon, because you can easily get it to corrosion, which is very good. And then we get to the basic elements, which I'm mostly put on um, corrosive heat, hellfire, hellfire. If you go with corrosive heat, you obviously need your first combo to chain together, which you can do like that by putting them beside each other, which will combine them. And then just put a hellfire or the other element somewhere else, which will then combine to corrosive and heat. I need to reduce the damage that each status effect does to because of the rule with the proccing. If one status effect does too much damage, then it will rarely ever proc. So here we have a lot of fire. Corrosive heat. So it'll proc like half of the time with corrosive, half of the time with heat, which is not too bad. So now when you shoot the enemies, you of course do corrosion procs, but also when fire procs will burst the enemies in flames, will make them flail around, and will also make them take a little bit of damage over time. And the first flailing around can sometimes take pretty long, mostly if you have a weapon that can continuously proc that stuff. So you just keep the enemies flailing around for a pretty long time, which will basically incapacitate them, because an enemy that's flailing his gun around like that cannot really shoot you in the face anymore. So very good and very complementary to corrosion, because you strip away the enemy's armor while he cannot do anything. But at the same time, stripping the armor will also go slower, because whenever you proc something that is not corrosion, well, then you don't proc corrosion and remove armor during that time. The next thing that you can do is put on ice. And I always go for 2 mods with ice because of the... Wait, where's my second ice mod? Oh, I don't have a second ice mod. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Ice only slows down enemies. So if you shoot an enemy and they would be moving, I'm just gonna unpause them. Hopefully they don't murder each other, which they will do because different factions will fight against each other. But now they will all together be slower. You hear the fire right now. It slows them by 50%. It also slows their fire rate by 50%, which is good to generally slow enemies and slow also the damage output that they do. But no one really uses cold except for the sentinel weapon, which is why I recommend you take the sentinel. Like the Artax, which is Taxon's weapon, which has a innate cold damage, so you can do that. And it's very effective at slowing enemies consistently. So the next damage type, the next base damage type is Toxin. which I have to mess around a little bit to actually get that to proc. Radiation toxin, there we go. And what toxin does if I would have enemies? It does damage over time, that's all. Why does it not proc on... Okay, now it does. It only does a slight tiny little bit of damage because it's affected by armor. He takes quite a lot more damage. So if I just shoot him a while, he actually takes a little bit of damage. Like 70, he takes 1 damage. So, yeah, it's kind of weak against Grenier. And for Corpus, like I said, with the shotgun, you mostly just blast him in the face with whatever element, like corrosion, that you have on there. Because, yeah, it already does enough damage. I mean, the shield is strong against corrosion, but yeah, most of the time you can ignore that because Corpus have so little armor and comparably low shields to what Grenier have as armor, and yeah, you can just about ignore that, so just always go for corrosion and maybe some heat as a little crowd control. Crowd control is something that makes enemies fight against each other, block them from attacking you, like electricity, like stuns and stuff. Yeah, stuff like that. Stuns, knockdowns. And the last element that I already showed is electricity, which just zaps them for a while. So, like I said, the most effective combo is that. Corrosive and heat, because you got the heat damage over time effect, which is combined with the crowd control, and you got the armor stripping for Grenier. And with that being said, I'll go into basic modding in the next thing, in the next tutorial, because modding weapons, like basic modding, is a little bit more difficult. And the first thing that I said about the basic modding is for players that just entered the game. The tutorial that I'm gonna give is a bit for older players that already got some mods and already have a decent weapon, and just go about the basics there. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and I hope you learned something. I'll probably just continue on doing tutorials and stuff, and like show some things like tips and tricks for warframes and how to use them effectively without constantly dying, even for some of the underappreciated warframes. And yeah, so see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.